don't think we need to take too long on this call, but this is basically meant to be a kickoff advisors meeting for this project. I want to say thank you all for being advisors or project personnel and for being part of this call. As Amanda sent around, we got this great website here that has all the details on the project, but I'll just kind of recap it really quickly. High altitude kind of recap of what the project is all about. So this is a project. It's called Rapid Exploitation of Commercial Remotely Sensed Imagery for Disaster Response and Recovery. It's funded by U.S. DOT through their Commercial Remote Sensing division, and we were awarded this back in December, so it's a brand new project, and we're nearing the end of our first quarter of work here. And basically, simply put, the project aims to come up with new ways to help in the immediate aftermath of a major flood event in terms of managing the repair and incident management around transportation infrastructure, specifically highway infrastructure. So it's got basically two objectives, and one is to help make sense of the massive amounts of satellite imagery that become available after a disaster by using, basically coming up with a bunch of fancy algorithms to crank through all this imagery data and do essentially a form of object-based change detection to look for areas where road damage has occurred as a result of that major flood. So in the case of Irene, there were many places, dozens of places all over the state where damage had occurred, and the idea would be by putting this imagery through this algorithm, you could pretty quickly identify exactly where all that damage was, and help, and then pass that information along to incident managers. And the second part is we want to use unmanned aerial vehicles to then go to those areas where there's lots of damage, segments of road that are hard or impossible to access, and that have undergone some damage, and actually overfly them with a UAV and generate 3D imagery from that using it's called stereo imagery, and then from that stereo imagery generate a 3D model that can be used to show how big and how deep as well the road damage is, so that can help incident managers figure out things like how much fill to order and what types of fill to order and how it might actually get there and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the whole project in brief, and we want this project to be as useful as possible to emergency managers, to incident managers, to state DOTs in general, MPOs, etc. So that was how we came up with our technical advisory committee. We wanted to have a mix of people from state DOTs, so we got a lot of folks from VTrans, although I think a bunch couldn't make it today. We've got one person from Maine. Is Charlie Hebson there by any chance right now on the phone from Maine DOT? No. Anyway, and then we've got folks from Zach from Vermont Emergency Management, and we've got Michelle Buchauer from Chittenden MPO, Chris, of course, from FHWA, Chris Jolly, and we were hoping to get some folks from industry as well, but I don't think we have anyone currently on that committee. So that's the project in a nutshell. That's also a quick description of the Technical Advisory Committee, which is, by the way, it is a requirement of DOT to have that committee. and it's been sort of vetted and approved, the composition of the committee by DOT. Incidentally, we have two more people who joined us in this room, Jim Sullivan and Jacob Leopold from the TRC. I guess before I go any further, are there any questions just about the project itself and what its purpose is?
Austin, this is Joel. Would you like me to give a sort of a little bit background on the imagery side, what happens during a disaster that folks may not be aware of?
Great, yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Sure, thanks. So hi everyone, this is Joel O'Neill Dunn again. I'm the co-PI on this study. And so one of the things that some of you may not be familiar with is there's something called the International Charter that gets activated during a disaster. And essentially what this involves is a consortium of commercial and governmental satellites that agree to acquire imagery during these types of major events. So this happened during Irene, and you get an awful lot of, in some cases, very high resolution, very detailed satellite imagery. That's funneled through the USGS. They have a wonderful system that's useful for downloading, querying and downloading that satellite imagery. The challenge that we faced during Irene, because I was sort of the manager on the imagery side, was first getting that information to people that were that could use it, and so Jonathan remembers that, and we were driving around with DVDs and things like that. And then, but really, it's not so much of an imagery problem. It's really an information problem. It'd be much more efficient if we extracted the information from that imagery. For example, where are the damaged roads, where are the bridges that are out, etc., rather than drive DVDs or hard drives around the state so that people can look at the imagery. Because these are very large data sets. And so, for example, nowadays, within 48 hours, you can sometimes have tens or even hundreds of gigabytes of imagery, which is difficult to process. So that's really a large part of the impetus behind the rapid exploitation side of some of the commercial imagery during disaster response. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this down the road. I just got a great presentation from the Civil Air Patrol talking about their capabilities nowadays. So no longer is our limitation the ability to acquire imagery like it was a decade ago. It's the ability to extract actionable information from this wealth of remotely sensed data.
That's great, Charlotte. Thanks. Did you want to say anything sort of about like the Irene experience, or?
Yeah, so in the situation of Irene, we had that, and Jonathan can jump in here as well. I think it was that situation where we just had, once again, far more imagery than we could extract information from in a timely manner. And that was even here in the lab. I run the spatial analysis lab at UVM, where I have a lot of undergraduates. I effectively call my map monkeys. Their ability to get this imagery and then read it out in a timely manner. It just wasn't fast enough, I think, for you folks, the folks that really need that information to get decisions. And I think we have to be not promise the world in this. We're not going to be able to tell you exactly what culvert is out where, but if we can give people an indication of where the damage is so that we can then get subsets of those imagery in a more usable format, such as via the web, to those folks that can use it, I think that's a real benefit. And then the other thing that we were excited about as part of this is the use of UAVs, and I know for Zach and I this has been an interest of ours for a long time, but sometime in the future the FAA is going to relax its rules a little bit and allow for not just government use of these small unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs, but also commercial use and academic use and maybe even personal use. And I think we've got to look at this technology and how it can really benefit an incident where we have areas that may be difficult to get to, where we can go ahead and get overhead imagery. And we can also probably extract some 3D models, we think, from that overhead imagery that can give us more detailed information that will hopefully provide all of you folks, once again, with some actionable information. And these are those situations where getting a survey crew to that area may not be feasible, We saw that we had some communities that were completely trapped during Irene. So this, we think, is a low-cost solution. These are sort of large briefcase-sized devices that you put in the back of your car, drive somewhere, pull them out, plug them into your laptop, plug in a flight plan, and they will fly that. So they're not remote controls where you're zooming all around or anything. They're flying a flight plan. There's a lot of restrictions on those right now, but of course, given that FAA has been directed to change their policies, we think a lot of potential for this type of work.
Yep.
And mostly just flying over Jonathan Croft's house and getting pictures and keeping an eye on him and make sure he's leaving for work on time and those sorts of things.
Just let me know so I can put the targets out.
Yeah.
I think Jonathan has a decoy outside his house now that he knows this. By the way, did someone just join us? I heard a ding.
Yes, sorry. This is Stephanie Magnan. I was on another conference call.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
So we just, Steph, we just went over a little description of what's going on, of the sort of high altitude overview of the project. I guess at this point I'd like to just open it quickly to any questions people have about the purpose or the methods of the project, or about how it might be applied, or any suggestions about how it might be applied within an incident management framework.
This is Wayne Gamble from the Agency of Transportation.
Hi, Wayne.
We spoke. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. We spoke earlier about possibly wanting to do some dry runs this coming spring, summer over some of our Irene projects.
Yep.
Is that something we're still looking at?
Yes, and the question is really the timing. What we're about to buy the UAV. UAVs are kind of difficult to buy. They take a while to order, and then you got to get trained and all this kind of stuff. But what we're looking at is that we'll probably do. We've been talking with Guy Ruel about doing our first, like before we're ready to do dry runs over actual maintenance operations on a road, we would like to just practice using the UAV on something really open and simple, and that was namely we're talking about sand pits over by the Franklin County Airport, which Guy would work to get us clearances to fly over. And we're hoping that's something we could probably start doing by, say, I'm guessing June, realistically. I don't know what your maintenance schedule is like. What time of year will you be doing these repairs that you were talking about?
The Irene repairs for the districts will probably, Steph is online, so she's probably one of the lead people on this, but we plan on having it all done on the district work by the end of the summer.
Okay.
There will be some PDD projects that are still going to be out there for a while, but the districts will plan on getting the majority of the work done, like I said, this summer.
And describe what a typical project is like. I mean, does this involve excavation of the roadway, or what exactly?
Yep, actually just that. Digging up banks, roadways, rebuilding, all that. So if you were going to be trying to figure out, quantities and types of materials and things like that, as we discussed, I think it would be a perfect time for it.
Okay, how deep do you typically go on those excavations?
Steph, do you know exactly? I know some of them where we ended up having to build the roads back with not the right types of rock that we wanted to. We're going to open those up, and those could be, Steph, 10, 20 feet deep at least?
That's what I'm thinking.
That's perfect. Yeah. That's great. Okay, so let's just say that we are going to aim to be operational, to be able to overfly those and to have the clearances to overfly those by this summer, but I can't guarantee that's going to happen. If you're still doing it in August, I think that might be, will it still be going on by August?
We'll have some stuff in August. Hopefully we're going to be winding down as much as possible by then, but we will still have some stuff going on.
Now, what about the next summer? Will there be similar types of operations going on the next summer?
There'll be PDD. We'll be doing some work. We in operations won't be. Steph, do you know what those might be?
I'm not sure when those are going to be going out to bid, but there's about 6 roadway segments that will be going out to construction over the next couple of years, but I could get more details on that.
Because it would be nice to have a backup plan that if we can't do the summer in time, because you can never quite predict, none of us have worked with UAVs before, so we don't know what's going to happen with the timeline. But if this summer doesn't work out, it would be nice to know that there are some other projects we can overfly next year in 2014.
I'm sure that we'll be able to come up with something for you.
Okay.
Sure.
So that's great. So I think what we'll need to do is we'll send you sort of a 2-scenario plan. Scenario A being everything works out this summer. We do our calibrations over Franklin County in June, and maybe in July. Then we're able to get the clearances from Guy in time to overfly your roadway segments, and then we're all good. The scenario B would then be that we don't make it in time for one reason or another this summer, and we have to go ahead. And I think the truth is we'll probably want to do these overflights next summer regardless, because the more the better. The more we do, the more we refine and calibrate this process. So knowing that there are opportunities in summer 2014 would be fantastic.
There's some really large projects on like Route 4. For example, I'm sure will be out till next summer.
Okay, that's great. Do you know and what are some of the other locations that you're looking at for this summer?
Well, a lot of it's in the southern Vermont, Route 4, Route 100, all the way down through some Route 9, Route 30. Anything else you can think of, Steph?
I can't off the top of my head, but I can actually send you a list of project areas if you'd like.
That'd be wonderful if you could do that.
This summer and next summer. Sure.
Yeah.
There are some that are planned on Route 100, but those may just be solely paving projects.
Yeah. No, we have Route 100. There's some on Route 12. We have a bunch, and as Steph said, she'll send you the ones for this coming summer and next, so you'll be able to see.
So let me ask then, typically when you excavate and you open up a hole in the surface, how long is that excavation, that hole, present for? How long is it around during a typical maintenance operation?
It depends on the project. We don't like to keep holes open any longer than we have to, so if we can get it done that same day, we will, but if it's a big project, which some of these are going to be, it'll be days, could be weeks.
Okay. That's great.
I know some of them down in, say, like I said, on Route 4, some of those are going to be the whole road that's going to be open, but we're going to have, it's just a huge slide area. So, some of those are going to be probably 100 or 200 feet down. Now, again, that's not going to be directly under the road, but it'll be open enough so you'll be able to take some good shots.
Mm-hmm, that's great. That's great. And
so a question for you, how much lead time would you need before these areas are opened up? I mean, there's always, we have the bid dates, but we don't know necessarily the day-to-day activities.
Let me ask, is Guy Ruel on the call? No, Guy. Guy is really the person who could tell us answer that question for us, because what he needs to do is he needs to contact, the Portland FSDO, the Flight Service Dispatch Office, ahead of time and essentially clear a flight, clear a flight plan. And how far in advance he needs to do that, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing it's not super far in advance, like maybe a couple weeks.
He told us a week.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that time frame was for when we were flying the initial test over the airport. Is that what your thought process is? So it might, like Austin said, my guess is it's just a couple of weeks. But.
Yeah. I mean, so it is not unrealistic that if we can buy this aircraft soon, we really could be doing this summer. I don't see it. I mean, from what we understand, it's very easy to fly, and although we'll make that judgment again when we actually have it in possession. But
yeah, and I think Steph, it will be important for us to get the list of potential locations as soon as we can, because I have a feeling Guy will also want location, there might be a reason that it's not desirable from his perspective as far as getting the approvals. We may want to go ahead with 2 or 3, maybe even 2 or 3 flight plans.
That's exactly right.
Get them all approved, and then we can choose. If we
Okay.
have a variety of projects over a time period, that would be helpful.
And one thing to keep in mind, if I remember guys' words correctly, we have to stay at least, I think it's 5 miles away from any FAA-regulated airport, which I think would be Burlington and Rutland and Camp Johnson. So, so like for instance, if we were overflying Route 4, we need to make sure that we're more than 5 miles from that airport there. But other than that, I think as long as you're outside of that zone, then basically Guy can get the clearances for us. So
most of our work is well outside that range.
That's great. That's terrific then, yeah. Okay, well, that's really good to know. I mean, this is an extremely important part of this. Is going to be overflying those road repairs, and I think, in advance, just if you guys could sort of send us a little information, once you get the list of repairs, about exactly what kind of activity is going to happen at each one, that'll help us sort of make a judgment about which would be the best one to overfly.
Why don't, when Steph sends you that report of all the locations and the types of work, you look it over. If you have any questions, Steph and I can probably help you out later.
That would be fantastic. Thanks. Okay, great. If there aren't any other questions or comments on sort of the general workflow of the project right now, I was thinking maybe, Jarlath, would you want to bring up the mind map?
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah. And we can just sort of show you a general kind of idea of what our workflow is for this project right now and what it is what we're working on.
It's not completely updated.
Yeah.
I have to say, that's my task.
Yeah. So you'll see on your screen, if you're logged on to the GoToMeeting, you'll see Jarlath has brought up our little architecture of tasks here. So basically, what we have is a couple of, our first task was to create the Technical Advisory Committee, which we've done, and we're really happy about that. Another task was to create the project website, which we've done, and that you just saw Jarlath was logged on to that a second ago. Yet another task is to acquire software and equipment. So in terms of software, Jarlath, do you want to sort of take over here for software and equipment?
Sure. So what's really funding this project, because DOT required a lot of match, was getting access to some of the software that we use to extract the information from the imagery. And then also another software package, that's a software package called eCognition, then another software package, Info. And what Info does is allows us to take images acquired from the UAV at 2 different look angles, so what we would call stereo pairs in remote sensing. And there's some great new technology that allows us to extract point clouds. A lot of you have probably seen point clouds, 3-dimensional point clouds that you get from LiDAR data. So these are ones that are obtained from overlapping stereo imagery. And so our hope is then, of course, we can use that to get estimates of volume and things like that remotely in areas where a survey crew would be denied.
Cool. And then, so we'll be getting actually, I mean, I guess it's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of free data and software, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, which is really nice from Trimble. And what our big purchasing decision right now is what UAV we're going to buy. I think we're looking most closely right now at the it's called the SenseFly. Jarlath, did you want to talk about that one a little bit?
Sure. I'll just throw it up on the screen here in case you, those of you wanted to see it. It's this model from a Swiss company called SenseFly, and the model is called the EB, and you can see it kind of fits in this little case here, and it's got this little propeller on the back, and you can mount some small missiles underneath. No, I'm joking about that. But I'll be going down to Baltimore next week, and I'll be meeting with them to sort of, like I said, this is also mentioned, this is our sort of the one we're most interested in, and so I'll be meeting with them to evaluate it, and then probably hopefully make the purchase first weekend April, and then move forward there with training and try to get operational very, very soon. So you can see it's a fairly small craft here, 96 centimeter wingspan, 45 minutes of flight time, battery, as I mentioned before. It's got a flight planning software that you can put in there. So this is really a off-the-shelf technology. It's not something that you have to assemble. It's not something that's designed for people with a lot of expertise. It's really sort of 2 days training, and you can be off and running with this, and ideally not only capturing imagery, but what you see here are some of these additional products as well, these three-dimensional surface models.
And what's nice about it is that long flight time. It means you can actually, you know, at a say a 50 km/h cruising speed, you could do about over 30 miles in a single battery charge. So you could go back, you could go up and back, you know, 15 kilometers on a roadway, which is a nice long, you know, distance to cover in terms of, you know, when you got roadways that are cut off due to road damage or something like that. And also, you know, it's got its own fail-safes built in. So if it, let's say the battery just fails suddenly or something, you know, it has its own little procedure to sort of slowly circle down and land, and it's got a, you know, GPS connectivity so you can track it down. But it doesn't, again, as Charlotte said, it doesn't need radio telemetry. You load the flight plan ahead of time, and as long as the engine and the battery continue to work and someone doesn't shoot it down with a skeet rifle, then it will just follow the path and come right back to you, and then you just download all the data with a USB connection. So it's very out of the box, as Charlotte said.
And as a technical advisory, all of you, of course, will receive one of these complimentary to use on your own free time.
For your kids, right?
Yeah, for your children. No, these devices are actually rather expensive. So these good UAVs right now generally range from a little under $10,000 to sort of $40,000, depending on what sort of model you want. But still, of course, cheaper than running your own aircraft. And I think they're going to fill an interesting middle ground between field observations and then more traditional fixed wing or satellite-based imagery.
Yeah.
What kind of weather can they go up?
Sorry, say that again?
What kind of weather can they fly in rain or snow, or is it
This one is up to 45 kilometers per hour of wind resistance. So I think you want to avoid rain and snow just because there's electronics on board and all that kind of stuff, but they can definitely handle quite a bit of wind.
Okay, just usually that, you know, when we lose roads and things like that, it's usually the bad weather's going on. Yeah. So.
Well, that's a good question, Charles. You know, I mean, it can probably tolerate some rain, I imagine.
There's only one way to find out.
Find out. Yeah.
I didn't know if maybe they had different levels in the model.
Yeah. I'd be curious, too, about cloud coverage, too. I know I used to work for a company that worked exclusively with LiDAR, and sometimes the LiDAR would be a lot less accurate in overcast conditions.
Yeah, I think one of the big advantages of this is that because it's flying so low, you can get under the clouds. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that it's a platform. So high winds, I think, I'll talk to the folks down there in Baltimore and get a sense on the rain, but I would bet that that's gonna limit things as well. And I think that's part of this project, is to be honest, when these technologies will work. And we see that this is a problem with imagery right now, right, is that you always have to wait until you essentially get clear skies before you're going to get a good overhead imagery of your area.
Yeah, exactly. You know, this I expect we'll be flying for 200 to 600 feet above the roadway. not very high at all. So we'll almost always be below the cloud cover, which is really big advantage. But it can fly high if you need it to. It can fly up to 10,000 feet, I think, if you needed to. But no, I don't see why we would.
No, and yeah, unfortunately, we just didn't have the budget in this project for a Predator, but maybe that's round two.
Yeah, it was $5 million.
But I've got a
one other
question
thing I wanted to say about these, though, is that I think there's going to be a lot of very interesting potential uses for this UAV, and so for all of you on the phone, as people working with state agencies and so forth, and federal agencies, it'd be great to think about what are some other potential uses for this, that might benefit, because I know there are some DOTs are starting to work with unmanned vehicles, and so but it's brand new sort of area of technical, expertise out there, so.
And I just want to add this, Amanda. When I mentioned the cloud coverage, it was more because of the link in GPS positioning from the UAV to the satellite. That's where we had issues in the imagery. But so it just adds to the list of questions to ask them when you're down there next week.
Thanks, we'll do.
So here's a question I would have. When you're talking about flying at a ceiling of or flying at 200 to 600 feet off the surface, are you programming in what the existing surface is? Because we have at least that much terrain displacement in some of the areas, like flying along 107 or 100 where you have a narrow valley and the slopes go right up. I would think you'd have to have some terrain that you're feeding into the flight path, so you don't end up putting it into the trees or worse.
Yes, no, Jonathan, that's actually been one of my questions for them as well, is in the flight planning software. I don't have a good handle yet on what sort of terrain, because you're right, we don't want to take this out for the first spin and just smash it into a hillside, but that's a great point.
Yeah. And the other is, if it does get blown off course, will it self-correct and get back on course?
Yeah.
I mean, it's on GPS, so it's just following its own pre-downloaded flight plan. So if it finds it's off course and it has actually a correct GPS reading, then it's supposed to self-correct. Yes.
Okay.
And it's also, if it runs into some sort of error, it's supposed to come home, so to speak.
Yeah.
But of course, if the winds pick up and it just gets blown to the ground, then you're in a different situation. That's what we have undergraduates for, to crawl through the poison ivy and find these things.
Exactly.
Oh, boy.
They know they're not going to get a good recommendation unless they bring home the UAV, and that's what it's going to boil down to.
And get poison ivy.
Oh boy.
Is this being recorded? Anyway, so that, and the SenseFly right now is our, I think, our leading contender. We've looked at several others. Hi, did someone just join? Or
I sure did, Guy Ruel. I didn't get the message.
Hey Guy, how's it going?
I didn't get my reminder. It's going great. I'm here now.
That's great. It's actually perfect timing, because we had some questions that involved you. So we were just talking about the model of UAV that we're looking at. It's called the SenseFly. If you're on the GoToMeeting, you can see it on the screen. And one question we were talking with Wayne and Steph about trying to coordinate with their Irene repairs that are going to go on this summer and hopefully into the next year. So I guess we wanted to know from you, what sort of lead time would you need if we were going to, if they were going to say, all right, we're going to do this excavation on Route 4 or whatever it is, and we want to overfly it, for a test case. How far in advance would you need to know to get us the clearance to be able to overfly that?
Well, the information, the more information you can get to me ahead of time, the better. Make and model of aircraft, the route of flight, departure point, the altitude you plan to fly, whether it's going to be an aircraft that's pre-programmed and you launch and it returns, or whether it's going to be remotely navigated or aviated. All of those types of things, the sooner you can get me those things, the better. From that, I can, I may have to make some modifications or changes to altitudes or routes of flight, but for the most part, I feel I could get a response back to you within 2 weeks at the very latest.
2 weeks, perfect. That's great. Okay.
Guy, could you perhaps send us a list of all those things that you would need to know ahead of time? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, we have it. Yeah. We have it, actually.
Yeah, I think I did a couple. I think you guys, what I've sent to you, you guys do have, you said?
And we will be able to get you everything as soon as we're talking about. We're still shopping for the UAV because it's kind of a big purchase, so we want to make sure we get it right. But once we buy it, we'll be able to answer all those questions really easily.
Perfect.
So that shouldn't be a problem. And,
that's correct. And, bear in mind proximity to airports such as Rutland, Burlington, and all of the other airports. It's really Burlington and Rutland are the two primaries, but then a lot of our other airports have instrument approach procedures into them, and so the route of flight I can certainly, when we find out your departure point, where you're going to and where you're coming back to, and its route of flight, we may have to modify that route of flight, but I think we can work something for you guys.
And I had made a guess that, or tried to remember the distance from the major airports you need to be in. Was it 5 miles that you said?
Well, it really depends on the airport, and it depends on where in the radius around the airport where you're planning to fly. Because I would just say that each situation is going to be unique, and it's going to be really the boss, and the situation will be the boss, and I can't give really a clear answer without knowing that route of flight.
Although from Wayne, it sounds like most of these road repairs are far from any airport, so.
All the better.
A lot of them are on 100, more of the center of the state, and Route 4, things like that. So I think you'll be able to be 10, 20 miles away.
Perfect.
That's great. Okay.
The Route 4, of course, it would be the northern. That'd be the one approach segment that goes into Rutland. We have instrument approach procedures that have what's called an aeronautical feeder route that actually runs from Montpelier. It's kind of an airway in the sky, and it runs from Montpelier directly to about 12 miles north of Rutland Airport, and then turns left towards Rutland. So we'll have to be a little sensitive in there with our altitudes. But for the most part, again, we can modify routes of flight and vary altitudes if need be to make it work for you guys.
And we'll learn more about the kind of altitudes we'll be flying at once we do the training. But I'm guessing they're going to be quite low, in the realm of, as I said, 200 to 600 feet above the ground elevation.
Right, perfect. And then so if that's the case, then the only other real issue that we'll have to look at is the populations, densely populated areas opposed to sparsely populated areas, and making sure that you guys have a fail-safe if an engine quits as to glide. Is it going to fly into somebody's house? Those are things that we can help you with and help mitigate the risk. I mean, we're not going to have a risk-free flight, but we can get the risk matrix within an acceptable parameter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Jim.
And Guy, this is Jim Sullivan. One more question about getting the flight plan approved. Is there any precedent for getting approval in which the exact day of the flight is maybe not a specific day? Maybe you get like a 3 or 4 day window?
Well, the only other factor that I would be in my risk matrix when I evaluate this is going to be weather, and there's different profiles of weather flying in Vermont. It's visual flight or instrument flight, and there's also some moderate visual flight. So we need to evaluate that, and I could basically tell based on the weather for the day what type of flying is going to be on certain air routes. That aside. We could give you a 2-day window So yeah, I'm kind of talking out loud and thinking this through as I go, so I'm sorry if I sound a little off base, but I don't see a problem with that. I think we could probably work that out, and we would probably have some go or no-go decisions with certain days. If the wind is going to be excessively strong, obviously these smaller UAVs are going to be susceptible to downdrafts, and so we'll have to consider that as well. But I don't see a problem with that, meteorologically aside.
Okay.
Sounds great. So, yeah, Guy, just to sort of recapitulate what we had talked about for a plan with the flying for this and next year is, we're hoping to buy this UAV in April, and I guess it takes 6 weeks to deliver, Jarlath, is that right?
That's correct.
So we wouldn't be getting it until May, but hopefully training on it around then. And then what we'd love to do is, once we get it in hand, is to clear with you an overflight of, as we talked about, the Franklin County Airport, where we can sort of fly over some sand pits and just have a basic kind of training and calibration practice run. Maybe for early June or something like that. And then if that goes well, then we could try to coordinate with Wayne to do some overflights of some of the Irene repair work in maybe July. And if we're behind schedule on that, and then we would obviously again coordinate with you, get a 2 weeks notice or whatever to overfly those. And if we're not ready in time for those, then we would push that off into the following summer of 2014. So that's kind of the general plan right now.
Absolutely. For even at the Franklin County Airport, if you needed to get up, just give me. I only need a couple of days' notice for that. We can get up there and we can actually clear the airspace and the airport for you. And if there are inbound aircraft or whatnot, we'll have one of our employees there with radios, and they can direct traffic and or direct you guys to land at that moment, and so that we don't interfere with air traffic. So we'll certainly be available for that and make that work for you.
Sounds great.
No, I'm on the web. I'm trying to find on the website here. I'm trying to find you said the make model of the aircraft is what?
It's the Sense
the model of the aircraft. Are you on GoToMeeting right now?
I'm trying to be.
Okay,
what was sent to me by
the model we're looking at right now is called the. If you don't have GoToMeeting up, you can just Google the EBEE by SenseFly. SenseFly is a company out of Switzerland, and the model we're looking at is called the SenseFly EB.
SenseFly? Yeah, I got it.
Yep. Okay. And so it's a very nice, well-designed little aircraft. Got a range of probably about 30 kilometers, 45 minutes of flight time, and is able to generate 3D models, which is what we really like about it. So.
Okay. What do you guys know approximately? I know you'll probably send me these things, but the approximate operating altitude that you're looking to use?
Like 200 to 600 feet is my guess, but we'll know more once we sort of start calibrating those cameras. My guess is, we're not going to want to be very high because we want to get as much detail as possible of the roadway, and we really don't want a wide swath. We just want a very narrow. We just want the roadway. So there's no advantage to flying high, really.
Good. And well, there's a definite advantage to flying lower. I can tell you that internal in the state of Vermont, other than us doing our due diligence, which we've already been talking about, airspace, approach surfaces, things of that nature, if you can stay at 400 feet, 399 feet AGL and below, then we can 100% approve these internal in the state of Vermont. If you go 400 feet and above, then it's going to require FAA clearance.
Okay, that's perfect, because I see no reason we need to be above 400 feet.
Perfect.
Yeah. Great. Okay, well, that's good news. So, Jarlath, do you have anything to add to the UAVs?
No. Thanks so much, Guy.
When did you say you're going to go down and talk with them?
I'll be in Baltimore meeting with them next week.
Okay.
I don't think they'll let me fly one, but given our proximity to the Baltimore airport. But if I am in jail, you can expect a phone call.
Okay. Let's see. Other than that, what else? I think other than that, the only other thing we really needed to cover is just future meetings. And what else? Can you guys think of anything else? I think that's it. I think we've covered most of the big issues here. So, I'm sorry. Did someone just say something?
Do you have a schedule of milestones?
We do actually, but it's part of our proposal, right? I mean, we have a milestone. Is that on the website? I don't think it is.
Is it part of the technical proposal?
It was a supplement to the technical proposal. It was an additional document, so we'd have to post that. But if you guys would like, we can.
There's a link from the website. At the bottom of the website page is called something called Project Links, and there's. I wasn't even actually. Go back for a second, Nelson. Project documents. If you pull up the contract, I think in the appendix, the last 2 pages of the appendix talk about each task and when is it supposed to be accomplished. Keep going a little farther down.
Actually, Jarlath is looking
those
at
two, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Jarlath has brought it up on the go-to meeting. So we do have that. Yeah. So if you go down to the website under contract, you can find the milestones there.
The last 2
project deliverables. Yeah.
Excellent. Yep, I see that.
Yep.
Great.
There we are. So anyway, I figure we should probably meet again this summer, I'm thinking, as we start the process of flying the UAVs. Does that sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably sometime in June, like just the UAV, and have done a test flight and have some more information about that, and then we'll know more about what's going to happen with the overflights of the Irene repairs. And it can be a short meeting, just to kind of give you guys a quick update of what's going on. Does that sound reasonable?
Yep, sounds reasonable for me.
Okay, yeah. Great. Well, that's all I can think of. Jarlath, do you have anything else?
No, that's it. Thanks so much, everyone. We're really looking forward to this. And once again, if you'd like some high-resolution images of your property you're looking to sell or something like that, we might be able to help you out.
For a nominal fee?
For a nominal fee. Nominal fee, and Guy will need to get his cut as well for approving the airspace.
Okay.
What's that word, impropriety?
It's so funny with these UAVs, and Guy probably knows the regulations, but I've been reading up on this, and if you're a hobbyist and use certain frequencies, you don't need to worry about it, but as soon as you do it for research or any sort of commercial or public services, everything's changed. So it's really interesting.
Compensation or higher, absolutely.
Yeah, and the FAA, of course, is tasked with resolving these things because a lot of other countries are ahead of us. They're flying these right now in South America for mining operations. Is a big thing because as they dig into the ground, they constantly need new 3D models. So it's really interesting. And actually, we're going to work on getting some imagery of those mines as well, just to play around with.
Yeah. Great. Well, hey, Jarlath, can you stay on the line?
Sure.
Yeah, great. But everyone else, thank you so much for your time. Feel free to email us with any questions or call or anytime. And we really appreciate your serving on the committee.
Absolutely, and just one more thing from me. Just looking at, I did look at the aircraft, and again, just to reiterate, with a 45-minute range, and you're looking at 10 to 16 meters per second with a cruise speed. If you keep this thing below 400 feet, I'll be able to 100% review and approve everything. I've just clarified and verified that for my own peace of mind before I obligate myself or the aeronautics. But looking at this and knowing the rules and regs, we're 100% good to go as long as I have a couple weeks to review it. So
that's great news.
Okay.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks.
All right.
Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm still on, Austin. We'll wait till I guess everything's done pinging.
All right.
I just wanted to let you guys know that I went into MindJet and I updated some information in there. First of all, I put in the task descriptions how much time was budgeted for each person for each task, so that you can kind of keep a running tally as we go along. And you know, if you have concerns with the amount of time that was budgeted, let us know. I also went in each task and each subtask has the reporting requirements for our quarterly report. What you'll see is an item called tracking. It includes accomplishments, problems encountered, and future plans, which is what we need to include in the quarterly reports.
Yep.
I went in for the first 2 tasks, which were the tasks we were supposed to work on for the first quarter, and updated what we had accomplished and put in at least my own hours, and I put in Jim's hours too after working with Jacob.
Yep.
So if you guys could, we have to put a quarterly report together. I was thinking if, do it April 1st. No, we have like 15, only 2 weeks.
You know what? I want to try to get it out. Let's see. When are you said you're visiting in next week?
Yeah, I'm visiting them next week, Austin.
Okay, so after you get back, I think let's start putting that report together. Let's try to get it in by like April 1st.
Yeah. Okay.
Because remember, I have to call Caesar Singh and let him know the situation. So I think if we get a report in early, showing that we're on top of this, then I can call right after that. We'll get some clarity on the earlier side rather than on the later side.
Well, if I was you, Austin, I'd turn in the report late and call with your speech all slurred, and then he'll be more anxious to turn it over to someone else for management.
I don't want to take the money. Just give him the money.
Yeah. I mean, if you look all competent, what's his incentive to let anyone else?
Yeah.
Did we stop the go-to meeting?